aggressive. Jeez.
Yeah.
Okay, so hello India. I am Jaby KOAY, joined by KIRK.
What's up?
And this is our spoiler talk for Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. This video is going to feel kind of raw, rough around the edges because I do not intend to cut this. This is a special video for you guys because y'all will be asleep, those of you who reside in India and Asia. You'll be asleep when we do our live stream spoiler talk for Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. So I thought we could kind of do an imitation of our live stream with the music and all, and no cuts, just us, very chill. So chill, everybody's chill. ACHARA is very lively right now because it's not 12:30 a.m. Anywho, thank you ACHARA for waiting while I clean myself up.
Yeah,
and
no
ACHARA
worries.
is anxious to go home and clean herself up so she can go to bed.
I'd like to go to bed.
And come right back here to do the live stream spoiler talk. Okay, so my favorite part of this movie was when I got up to leave and I turned to John and Andrew and jokingly said, "That movie was terrible." And this dude behind me goes, "Hey, I liked that movie." And this dude, mind you, had the loudest yawn I've ever heard in my entire life 4 times throughout the film.
So aggressive.
He went, "Oh." I'm like, geez.
I know. It was like a cartoon yawn. It
Yeah.
was like, oh, and I'm like, dude.
It sounds like
you're
one of
at
your acting
cinema.
exercises.
Yeah, I know.
But anywho, so we're not talking about this dude. And hold on. Last thing about him is as he was leaving, because Greg's girlfriend, fiance, excuse me, John, Andrew, myself, and ACHARA were standing around outside the theater room talking, and we're just chilling. And that same dude comes out the bathroom and goes, "I loved it." And he said, I don't know what he said. He loved it. Wakanda Forever.
Yeah.
As he was leaving. The shaggiest long hair. Anyway, strange feller, made for an interesting story. So,
What's up, guy?
Wakanda Forever. Watching this a second time, every time I watch a film a second time, or third for that matter, sometimes I experience a slight disconnect in the movie because I'm already familiar with it.
Mm-hmm.
Even if I really like it, there's a certain degree of disconnect. And I can rate that on a scale of 1 to 5, right? And so like Top Gun, even though I love that movie, when I watched it a second time, my disconnect out of 5 was probably like at a 2.5, maybe 2. Like I still really enjoyed myself, but I'm not...
Maverick?
Yeah, Maverick.
Okay.
Yeah. I still really enjoyed myself, but it's not like anything's new, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so here, I think it was at a 2, maybe 1.5, 2, where I'm feeling a little bit disconnected, but I'm able to appreciate things aesthetically.
Yes.
I'm able to pick up on certain things that I didn't pick up on the first time. But there were certain things that I was like, oh, I can't hear the dialogue as well. We watched it in IMAX, by the way, as opposed to the private screening room that we did the first time. I liked it more the first time because
That was
audio,
Dolby.
Yeah, the Dolby audio was better.
It was good,
It's just more clear. The jokes were more clear. Except the one about... now, y'all can correct me, because obviously this is spoilers. If you're still here during this live stream spoiler talk, India, this is spoilers. And so at one point, M'Baku... I should pull up the IMDb just so I don't embarrass myself. At one point, M'Baku says... And he's talking about Namor, and he said... I thought he said... He's strong as an oak.
I still heard that.
And I watched it today and I was like, oh, I think he said Hulk. And that's why everybody laughed.
Oh.
You heard something. You still think Oak is funny? You think Oak is hilarious?
I know. I was like, wow, everybody finds him so funny. He said he's as strong as an oak. I mean, that totally makes sense because, Namor's really strong.
Mm-hmm.
He's a super badass, and all of those people from Talokan are super badass.
So one thing my brother pointed out that he'll probably talk about on his live stream tomorrow was the one part he found a little bit jarring was when Namor goes into his backstory. And actually, when he said that to me, I realized that I felt the same way the first time I had watched it, where when Namor starts diving into his background, what happened to him, where he comes from, etc., I was like, oh, he just jumped right into it. That was kind of odd. But this time watching it, because I knew that was coming, it didn't bother me as much.
I mean, I thought that they handled the whole backstory bit really well. I didn't feel that, but I can understand why, you guys might have. But they did do a really good job with showing us who he is, telling us more about him, and making us care about him.
Yeah.
It all made sense. His motivations made sense.
Yeah.
He's just trying to help his people. They were being colonized,
Right.
basically. And the Spanish Inquisition was an awful, awful time in history.
Well, speaking of things that are jarring, I think that like I was paying more attention to the action this time around, even more. Like, because I remember my first time watching it, I think I was just, that first hour, you're just sort of just figuring out where things are going, right?
Yeah.
And when action is happening, you're still just kind of on an emotional ride with everything happening. And then when you get to the final act, where it's the barrage of action sequences, all of the pennies have dropped. Like, you understand where everything is headed now.
Yeah.
And everything is clear, so all you're left with is the fight. And when that happens, excuse me, let me slow down a little bit. I noticed that there were some consistencies in the disruptiveness of the editing in action throughout the movie this time around is what I'm trying to get to. Meaning, the action when the French army was attacking the Wakandans, I was like, oh, it's a little bit frenetic.
Yeah.
I can see it. I can still see it, but it's way worse in that final set of sequences.
Yeah, I mean, like you, I noticed it from that first fight scene in the outreach center.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, oh, I feel so frustrated because I know that they're doing some really cool things here.
Yeah, that's what
but
I
I
felt
can't
too.
see it properly. Like, it's too close.
Yeah.
And it was moving around and it was kind of shaky cam. And I'm like, why? They're badass. I love the Dora Milaje.
Yeah.
I want to see them do all their cool stuff.
Yeah, I actually felt kind of bad for the stunt people and the actors because I'm like, I know all these actors train their asses off for this movie, and it's all being covered up in crazy camera angles, and I'm like, we can't appreciate this. We can't appreciate all the hard work that they put in, and that's one of the disappointing things is just the technical angle of the film, where it's just like sometimes shots are out of focus, and sometimes the shots are too close to appreciate the fight scenes. And the best action actually was the one-on-one fight with Okoye. Sorry, I couldn't remember her name because I got nervous. Okoye and the warrior guy.
Yeah.
And that was actually like they built that up really well because it's like this thing that kept coming back.
Yeah, it was cool. It was like they had this mutual respect for each other ever since that fight on the bridge.
Yeah.
Where she lost her weapon, but he respected her skill so much. He kicked it over to her and just waited for her to pick it up. I thought that was a really cool moment. And then, yeah, you're right. They keep bringing that back where, they have this respect for each other, warrior to warrior. And it's like, let's see who's best.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that a lot. And the fight also just had an intensity to it.
Yeah.
It was a nice build-up. So the thing is, great action, you can follow the story thread. Like, it makes sense to you as you're watching it. Like, you see the beats happening and you feel an emotional attachment to what's going on depending on the beats of that fight.
Mm-hmm.
Like, maybe you feel scared for your main character as you see they're being beaten and they're gonna have like one ace up their sleeve that maybe they got at the last second, whatever it is, where you're sort of just following it, right? And for the most part, in the action in this movie didn't have that, except for the fight with Okoye and the warrior guy, and a little bit in the sand fight, the beach fight.
Oh, at the end.
Yeah, that had it a bit there where I could see what was going on and like the stakes kept leveling up.
Yeah, the stakes were high then because we knew that moment it was like, this is it.
Yeah.
If she loses, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I appreciate those. There were some weird things still, but okay, so basically like the logical brain was playing a larger role while watching the movie this time, and I was like, I wonder where they went that direction. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but I still really enjoyed it. Like, I still had a lot of fun and came away going, wow, this is remarkable how good this movie is considering the circumstances. It still astonishes me when I watch it. I'm like, damn, they did a really good job. And I was rewatching the first 30 minutes of the first Black Panther in the morning before watching Black Panther Forever, Wakanda Forever tonight. And I was like, they did such an astonishing job of carrying this film forward and making one of the things we talked about was how the accents sounded inconsistent off those first 30 minutes of Black Panther, the first film. Mm-hmm. And then here, everyone sounded like everything felt more cohesive and tight.
Yeah. And it was also really interesting just kind of getting to come back to Wakanda and just really be immersed in the culture again.
Yeah.
And just learn more about them. Because, we're getting to see them do funeral rites, not one, but two funerals.
Right.
And just the importance of the ancestors and their belief system and everything. It was really interesting. And they did a really great job at just making that feel like you were almost watching a documentary, you know, like
Yeah.
it felt like these were real people and this was like a real culture. And same with with Talokan as well.
That the two bits in the movie where it's the montage of Chadwick Boseman
Yeah.
and it's silence, right,
Yeah.
with the Marvel logo, the Marvel logo in the beginning, where it's all Chadwick Boseman, and it felt like that Marvel logo was like 4 times longer than it normally is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Remember how the Marvel logo used to be like this epic long thing, like the HBO opening from like the 90s. Like it felt like a really long Marvel opening, so you could get every single image they could of Chadwick Boseman in there, and it's like just all you hear is wind or whatever.
I thought that was a nice touch.
And it's just like, oh God, this is so painful.
Well, yeah, and not only that, then this time round, I noticed that it wasn't just the images and like the video that they had of him from the first film, but they had also included some of his iconic lines from the script in the background as well.
Oh, interesting.
Which was like very moving for me this time around because I really paid more attention.
Okay.
And I thought that was like, it was just a really nice homage. And I've heard a lot of people on the internet saying that they felt that as a tribute to Chadwick Boseman, they did a really great job in that regard.
Yeah. But then at the end of the movie, before the mid-credit scene, when it does it again, and it's Shuri dealing with that loss and moving on and letting go, and the sound cuts out again. All you hear is like the wind,
the waves,
and it's like the waves of time. You know, it's like it's symbolic in a way.
It's
Waves,
life,
waves are very symbolic, and all that sound just cuts out, and you just see the montage of Chadwick Boseman again. The first time I watched it, man, I had a kind of cry. Like it was so intense. This time I managed to manage my emotions much better, where it still got me. I still had like to use the napkin to wipe some tears.
Well, I think what was really interesting about that scene that was different than the first tribute that they did to him was showing us what he meant to her.
Yeah.
You know, because it wasn't just him, it was like her interacting with him and just like how much he meant to her and what it meant for her and her identity to be his sister.
Yeah.
You know?
Is impactful, to say the least. I mean, there's obviously like the real life element that weirdly I feel like the audience and the producers, director, the creators, the participants in making the film also feel like everybody collectively feels this massive loss.
Yeah, and like they also paralleled real life as well with his story because they talked about how, he was suffering in silence and no one knew until the very end, and in much the same way, the whole time that Chadwick Boseman was filming these movies for Marvel and doing Black Panther, he was ill.
Yeah.
And he was just powering through and he didn't tell anyone. Like what was it? I heard or I listened to something where the director Ryan Coogler had the script and he brought it to Chadwick and he was like, "Hey, I have the script done. Do you want to read it?" And then Chadwick Boseman was like, "Oh, no, not right now. Why don't you show it to the Marvel people first, and then I'll take a look at it." Because at that point he knew he wasn't going to be around. Why are you looking at me? Did you tell me that story?
I not only told you that story, I told it to you on camera, and you can watch me tell it to you in our spoiler in our non-spoiler review.
That's right. Yeah. That's why you had that face.
It's just interesting to see you regurgitate it so well. I'm like, oh wow, that's better than the way I told it.
Yeah, but I couldn't remember it was you.
And mine was a paraphrasing of Cosmic Wonder.
Oh, there we go.
So
yeah, wow.
The telephone game is actually pretty good on this one. So just actually surprised. I had a thought that I wanted to share and I completely lost it because you were going on that story. Shoot, hold on. It's gonna come back to me. All right, it's gone.
Do you want to talk about the mid-credit scene?
Oh, I remember. Now I remember.
Go ahead.
Okay, so one thing that, because I'm gonna totally forget this. One thing that really resonates with me about this movie that I really, really appreciate is the fact that Shuri's character is such a logical person, right?
Right.
And she's wrestling with these things that are completely illogical. And she's trying her best to apply her science, for lack of a better word, her understanding of the world.
Her framework.
She's trying to apply that to everything going on. And when her mom is like, you know, talking about the traditions and whatnot, and she goes, no, Mom, that's just you didn't actually talk to him. That's just a construct in your mind.
Yeah.
And the way Angela Bassett responds, I thought was brilliant. She goes, okay, so it's a construct. So what is your construct doing for you? Is it helping you or is it making things worse? And I thought that was a great way to pivot, a great way to spin that.
Yeah.
And so, like, as someone who deals with grief, with loss, I think that's one of the things you encounter is where you're like, hold on, that, like, when you just think of you know, I have to be careful with what I say on YouTube, but like, you know, like the incident that happened in Thailand not too long ago at the school, right? You know what I'm talking about,
Yes.
which happens a lot in America. Whenever something like that happens, like, you're shook up, even if you don't have any personal connection to it, you're shook up.
Well,
And-
yeah, you start to ask, like, if there's a God, why would they do something? Why would they allow something like this to happen? How does this factor into the larger plan? And in much the same way that Shuri was like, I don't understand why I was given these gifts
yeah.
and I couldn't use them to help my brother.
Exactly.
Like, what was the point?
Yeah. And I like her wrestling between science and spirituality throughout the
Yeah.
film without it being so in your face. You know?
Yeah, and I mean that's one of the themes that I really enjoyed, which is like the progress versus tradition, and like how there is beauty in both and how they can both coexist. You know?
So you were talking about mid-credit scene.
Yeah.
I think Greg titled his video like the best mid-credit scene ever in a Marvel film or something like that.
Yeah.
And I thought that was actually a very, very smart tactical move on Greg's
Said
part.
end credit, but yeah.
Yeah, he said end credit, but still, it's basically end credit because there's
there's nothing else. Yeah.
And I having thought about that because I didn't watch his video in full. I saw like the first 3 minutes, which is hilarious, and then I had to do something. But thinking about just the idea that could be the best, you know, Marvel mid credits, end credits, whatever scene ever. I actually can agree. I can see why. I don't know if I would 100% agree with that because I'd have to like revisit all the Marvel endings.
Yeah.
But I'd say it's pretty darn strong.
No, because it just felt like a scene. I thought it was really confident.
It didn't feel like a commercial.
Yeah, it didn't feel like it was trying to go, oh, this is what we're teasing for the next few movies or where we're going with the MCU next. I
Yeah.
mean, maybe kind of.
No, it is.
Because you said since his son's name is also T'Challa.
Yeah, he's going to inherit it. Yeah, so you can
yeah.
imagine that there's going to be like a young T'Challa in a upcoming film at some point.
Yeah, at some point.
Like whether we're much further in the future where he's a grown-up, but I think the natural progression would be we have a teenage Black Panther.
Yeah,
you know, potentially.
Maybe. But I just liked the concept of just really wrapping up the movie. If the movie is about death, about going through grief, is realizing that, you know, we live on through the people we leave behind. And especially if you have children, you know, like they are a part of you and they keep you going forward, you know? And so there's
carrying
light
on your DNA.
yeah, there's light at the end of the tunnel, and it was just a nice way. I mean, it was heartbreaking, it was gut-wrenching. Every time I watched that scene I felt hollow inside, but also like in a good way, because I felt optimistic.
That's
an
interesting confluence
Isn't
of
it
things.
weird?
Okay,
Yeah.
so yeah, I understand what you're saying.
I felt hollow because of the sadness, you know, but it's like a sadness that's bittersweet.
I get you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I felt hollow, but I definitely felt things. Hollow is not one of the words I would use to describe it, but that's subjective. So I really like that they did a very, very good job of introducing stuff for upcoming chapters without it feeling like it was being thrown in your face.
Yeah, because a lot of the time it feels like wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And it's like this movie was different. It was really interesting watching it with a big crowd. It was like a sold out theater and with lots and lots of people. And I thought for sure there was probably going to be a lot of hooting and hollering that we're used to when we go and watch
Marvel films.
a Marvel film.
Action, DC films.
Yeah, and there wasn't really that much. There was like a lot of clapping but it wasn't, I guess, because
it's not that kind of movie.
Yeah, because it's
really
not that. It's not that movie, which I think is so interesting because it's like a real departure from what we've had before.
Well, while it's super, super sad that Chadwick Boseman has passed, I think it's allowed us to have this opportunity to explore Marvel films cinematically. Because
Yeah.
while it's called the MCU, you know, Martin Scorsese's argument was this isn't cinema, this is theme parks. And I could see his argument. While I disagree, and I think that there have been a lot of emotions that I have felt through Marvel films, this one definitely takes the cake. This one definitely feels the most like a movie.
Yeah.
You know,
Like its own thing.
like its own thing. Even though it depends on the information you get from the first film, it just feels like a film. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like feelings and all, story and all, and even its very confident length, its confident runtime. It feels very much like a movie as opposed to just this like in between thing connecting us to other Marvel films.
Yeah.
And so I have a lot of respect for it, you know, and you're saying that there's not a lot of hooting and hollering and all that. It's because it's not a party movie. It's not meant to be taken that way. There's no moment like when Thor shows up in Avengers Infinity War with his axe. You know, there's not a moment like that in the movie because it's not designed for the cheering. It's designed for this journey that, namely, Ryan Coogler has gone on, you know?
Yeah.
It's him expressing his own grief and moving on from that grief through this picture. And I think that's a fantastic way to use this film as a vehicle for his own expression and for his own growth as a person.
Yeah, because didn't he want to like walk away?
Yeah, he wanted to exit cinema for good because of what happened, which it just messed him up.
Yeah.
In a really, really profound way. But
I guess that's like a really great example of how you can use art to work through your emotions and then create a really amazing project for the rest of us to share in that journey and those emotions as well.
Yeah, well, there are other films that there's only one in my mind, and I don't want to be specific because it's someone that's connected to us. But there's a film that we watched that was kind of dealing with grief, and it was just uncomfortable to watch for me. And I was just annoyed the whole time, right? Whereas this is like, okay, I like how Ryan Coogler dealt with his grief here. Maybe he was bound by the suits at Disney, and he was like, no, you have to take it this direction.
Right.
It's like, okay, cool. Like, the balancing act was great because I love this movie. Like, watching it twice, I'm like, okay, I can confidently say I love this movie. You know, I think it's just so well done, and Ryan Coogler did like chef's kiss. Fantastic job. There are some logical things that confuse me a little bit, but the film as a whole is so strong it doesn't matter.
Yeah. I mean, even all the stuff like the arc of having Ramonda die and all that, like it felt necessary for Shuri's journey.
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing that confused me. So after Shuri's taken, right?
Yeah.
And then Okoye is fired. Fired? Fired, do you hear me?
That was a great scene.
That was a fantastic scene, yeah.
That was the one where we were all like, oh my God, Angela Bassett, queen.
Both of them. I mean, yeah, Angela Bassett obviously stole the movie, but in that scene, I liked what she did, and I liked what Danai Gurira. I like what she did too. I thought she did a great job.
Both were so strong. And like the love as well that was shared between them. Like my heart broke every time Okoye was like, mother, you know, because she's not just a queen. She's like the mother of the nation.
So
you know?
when Shuri's kidnapped and Angela Bassett goes down into her science lab and talks to her AI, I was like, hold on. So hold on. Nobody else came up with this idea? Just her? Like, there's a whole team that works for her. None of them would have gone to the queen and said, hey, don't fret. You don't need to fire her. We found her. We know exactly where she's at. Or, we can help locate her.
We can track her Kimoye beads.
No one in this team, in this brilliant Wakandan team, Wakanda is known for its advanced technology. And no one in their brilliant team had the sense to go to the queen and say, hey, just so you know, it's not all a loss. We can kind of track her. You know what I mean? Anyway, whatever. So the thing is, I had to like speak against that thought immediately when I thought it. And I was like, okay, while it makes more sense for someone from the science team to go to her, etc., it works for the movie because it makes Angela Bassett's character, what do you call it? She's taking action.
Well, also...
She's an active character. That's what I mean to say. She's an active character.
And also, it shows a little bit of change and growth on her side because at the beginning of the movie, she said to Shuri, this AI makes me uncomfortable. I don't like it.
Yeah.
And then what does she do when she loses her daughter? The first thing she does is she turns to tech. So if we look at the symbolism, perhaps, of what these two characters represent, Ramonda represents more of the traditions and the old ways, and Shuri is, the new ways.
Yeah.
And then they kind of flip-flop it around by the end of the movie.
Sure. There's this trick that the movie used that whenever I see it, it always works. It's when Angela Bassett dies in the film.
Yeah.
And Okoye is trying to revive her.
Yeah.
And then Lupita Nyong'o or Nakia's like, she's gone. And Okoye is still trying to save her.
Yeah.
Every time I see that trick in a film, it always messes me up for some reason. Where you have one character that is so desperately still trying to keep this person alive.
Yeah.
Even though it's very clear you lost her or
Yeah.
him or whatever.
Denial. That's the first.
Yeah.
That's the first stage of grief.
I guess because it's so relatable.
Yeah.
To feel that sort of that level, that sense of denial. That's why it easily touches me when I see it.
Yeah.
Because I was feeling like emotional when she died.
For me, it was Letitia Wright's performance
That
in that
too.
moment when she was just like screaming.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my
Yeah.
God,
That
my
too.
heart is broken for you.
No,
that
for
was
sure.
that was rough for her. Like she lost literally everyone.
Tenoch Huerta.
Yeah.
Namor. The first time I watched the film, I wasn't really sure how I felt about him. I'm going to be totally honest with you. I thought he was a good bad guy, but I was like, I don't know if I love his performance. And this time watching it, I'm like, oh no, like he actually did a really good job.
Yeah, I
like,
think so.
I appreciated him more this time around than the first time, and I'm not sure why that is. Maybe it just had to settle, but he made for a very good nemesis in the movie.
Yeah.
Antagonist. I don't want to say villain, but he made for a very good antagonist in the film.
Yeah, and I mean, and they set up his people as like really formidable, really strong. I don't get how they don't die. They
They have some kind of advanced technology that works in their favor.
I don't know. They were like, because Okoye, by all rights, she killed like 3 of them, and then they just came back to life.
Yeah.
I was like, wow.
But yeah, see, that didn't make sense because with the other girl that died in the cave. When
Yeah.
she got it's like, what?
Yeah.
I mean, Nakia goes, she said a line to justify it. She goes, that distance was a fatal shot.
Yeah.
Or she said something like that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, okay. Well,
Yeah, you're right. You're right. It doesn't really make sense because they set up those guys in the beginning to be so strong, right? But
Yeah.
maybe there's different levels of warriors. Who knows?
I don't know.
Yeah. But I did like how they included some like classic mermaid lore. I thought that was cool when they have their sonic attack and they sing and then everybody starts jumping off the ship. I was like, I like that they have mermaid powers.
Yeah.
That's fun.
How did you feel about Riri?
I liked her. I thought she was cool, but it was kind of like in Multiverse of Madness where they just introduce the new young character and it's like,
Oh, I definitely liked her more than
yeah, you're all right, I
Yeah.
guess. Yeah.
Stargirl, America Chavez.
Yeah.
I forgot her name.
That is her
it just
name.
America Chavez? Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. I liked her more than America Chavez. Easily. But watching her, I was still like, I don't know if I love you. Sometimes it just felt over the top.
Well, it's like because we got introduced to her, but then like there isn't really anything there. It's not her movie, you know what I mean? And so like she's trying to be helpful, which is cool and all, but you know she could have just not been there, I suppose. Although she was, like you said, she's a MacGuffin, isn't she?
Yes.
Yeah.
The other thing that sort of threw me was, you know, with Namor. Mm-hmm. He shows Shuri his whole kingdom, right? And
Yeah.
I get why. You really needed that. You needed that backstory. You needed to see their kingdom, etc. Like you needed that as the audience.
Yeah.
And I thought that actually that was a really cool development scene for those characters. It was actually nice for the protagonist and antagonist to spend that much time together in the movie. I thought that was a great move from a writing perspective. It's just interesting to me that when she bounces, right, and he's got his thing to his people, he goes, what's the name of the kingdom again?
Talokan.
Talokan. He goes, Talokan, I fucked up. We're gonna go fight them now. And everyone's like, yeah. It's like, what? No one's like, yo, like This is you. This is a you mess up. This sounds like a you problem. You got us in this. You get us out of this. How about that, buddy? Like everyone's just on board. And then you responded to me outside the theater going, well, he is a god to them. I'm like, oh, okay, I guess it's fair. But then if he's a god, why is he telling me he messed up? You know what I mean?
You know, sometimes gods do that,
Yeah,
right?
I guess.
They tell us that.
I don't know.
Stuff.
Going from Old Testament to New Testament, there wasn't an instance where Jesus was like, yo, that other version of me, I'm
My
sorry.
dad is really grumpy.
Like,
I'm the cool one.
Yeah, I never got that memo. You just see the transition.
Yeah.
Anyway, the other logical thing that kind of screwed me, not screwed me, that I thought was screwy or weird, was I think that it was super cool how Shuri cuts the wings off of Namor's foot, off of one of his feet. Mm-hmm. I think that was great. That was a great moment in the fight. However, I think it was dumb where they put it. Because while it felt cool in the buildup of that fight, it didn't make sense there. It made sense if it was on the ship. Why? Because after the ship explodes, and they're both perfectly intact, after the ship explodes, Shuri's on the ground just like waking up. And where is Namor? In the sky, flying around. What's he doing? Why didn't he go to the water, get some water, go punch her in the fucking face, go back to the water, and then go punch her in the face again? So he's super rejuvenated. You know what I mean? And she's weakened.
Overconfident. That's what it was.
Okay.
I think.
It just seemed to me that it was a perfectly good opportunity for him to level up and like make the stakes seem even more dire for her because he's replenished.
He's freshly wet.
Yeah. You see what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
you really stack the stakes against her, and somehow, above all odds, through the power of Black Panther, she's able to defeat him. You know?
Yeah.
Because at the end, when he's like, oh, a Black Panther is the most powerful, whatever, in a way, it felt like he was saying Black Panther was more powerful than him. You know what I mean? Even though he didn't overtly say that, because
Right.
he specified of the surface world. But I'm like, yeah, but she dehydrated you. What if you were not dehydrated? Because like in the first Black Panther, they have that whole thing where his powers are taken from him, so they can have a fight.
Yeah.
So you could see that he really deserves the throne, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you did that to her, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. Like if M'Baku was like, I'm going to challenge you for the throne, Shuri. And she had to, not have the heart-shaped herb.
All I'm saying is, like, if she cut off his wing inside the ship before it exploded, there's no way he's going to fly to the water. You take that out of the equation. That's all I'm saying.
Sure.
But this is me having watched the film a second time. I'm able to see things like that because the first time you watch it, you're just like, what's going on? And you're not really thinking about it. This is like, okay, now you can pick apart some of the fallacies a bit.
Yeah.
But anyway, still a fantastic film overall. Still really, really enjoyed it. Still emotional as heck. And I bought more into the, I don't know if I said this to you off camera or on camera, but when I watched the film the first time and they show the casket, there's a part of my brain that goes, I know Chadwick Boseman's not in the casket.
Oh, yeah, you did say that.
You know? But the second time watching it, for some reason, I was able to buy into it more. Don't know why. You know?
I think it was just like you maybe understand like it's part of their culture because even Ramonda's, it was covered and
That's
you
true.
didn't see who was in it. But I thought it was really cool just how they had the picture on it.
Yeah.
You know, like they had the Black Panther like that on T'Challa's, and then for Ramonda it was like her profile looking really regal and everything.
Yeah.
I like the attention to detail that they have for, portraying this culture that's kind of a mishmash of a bunch of different African cultures and paying homage to that while creating something new that feels just like really lived in and interesting.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I think that's a great note to end it on. You guys, thanks so much for hanging out with us. Hopefully you enjoyed this spoiler talk just for y'all. And thank you. And let us know if you enjoyed the film. And what are your positives and negatives in the comments below. Thanks again. I'm Jaby KOAY. This is
ACHARA KIRK.
Peace out.